Here's a fun fact about me. It's possible to scare me with a whole bunch of things. Whether it's cursed, evil, whatever, if it can give me nightmares, it will give me nightmares. So in crafting this video, I had to look at a whole bunch of cursed artwork. So if I explode or something, you guys know the cause. Unless all the cursed images cancel out each other, in which I'm safe. Whatever the case, these 10 evil pieces of work have ruined lives. At number 10, we have the portrait of Henrietta Nelson. There aren't very many historical paintings in the world with a spooky rating as high as the portrait of Henrietta Nelson. Why is she looking at me like that? Confirmed? I do not like it. Just look at it. Nothing about it is right. It's all pale and washed out and curses people, or art critics. So if you're listening, I'm sorry, but her vibe is just kinda off. But was she? Here's some backstory on Miss Nelson. This portrait of her was painted by William Johnson in 1780, and when Nelson passed in 1816, she was buried in a mausoleum at her home rather than at the family tomb, per her wishes. When her estate was sold, the new owners demolished the mausoleum and moved her remains to the church. And according to legend, that's when Nelson's spirit began to roam. Some claim her expression in the portrait changes at times, and others have seen an apparition of her wearing the same clothing in the painting. I mean, even over 100 years later, Brian Hall, the longtime owner, claimed Bannington Rectory felt empty after the painting was stolen one night, as if her spirit had gone with it. And luckily for curseable people everywhere, it was returned 7 years later. But guess what? It's now once again in circulation, as Brian Hall eventually sold all his haunted artifacts at the age of 82 due to his ill health. Now, doesn't that seem like a nice holiday gift? At number 9, we have the portrait of Bernardo de Galvez. Up next on our list of horrific portraits is that of Bernardo de Galvez, a nobleman and military leader who played a significant role in the American Revolution. In fact, de Galvez is widely regarded as the hero for his efforts to aid the American colonies in their fight against British rule. But while he's respected as a leader, his painting, not so much, as some believe that there is a curse attached to his portrait. According to legend, anyone who looks directly into the eyes of Bernardo's portrait will suffer a terrible fate. You have to go way back to find the origin of this curse, but reportedly it was born during the Spanish-American War, when American soldiers looted de Galvez's home in Louisiana and took his portrait as a trophy, which is like how to get cursed 101. Since then, several people who have come into possession of the portrait or stared deep into his eyes have, as you'd expect, experienced misfortune. One man inherited the portrait from his grandfather and hung it in his home. Not long after, he lost his job and his wife left him, and the painting saw the entire thing and probably laughed. Another tale involved a museum curator who displayed the painting and suffered a heart attack soon after. Even those who have seen photographs of the portrait claim to feel uneasy, or sometimes just experience strange occurrences. Yeah, maybe I should have led with that. Whoops. At number 8, we have Pogo the Clown. Y'all know the cursed clown by the name of Pogo, right? The alter ego of the widely known horrible human being John Wayne Gacy, the man who had an affinity for leaving people under his floorboards. Well, it turns out after his life-ending career came to an end, he decided to pursue something different, and on paper, pun intended, less harmful. That being painting. In fact, a number of his pieces can be found online, but his most well-known work is his Pogo the Clown painting, which is a self-portrait of sorts. So yeah, there's no surprise why this one is said to have an aura of darkness around it. I can tell you for a fact this is not something I'd ever want in my home, but a musician bought it in 2001, and pretty soon after owning it, the tragedies began. First, his dog passed away, followed by his mother being diagnosed with cancer, before a friend of his took the painting, and that friend's neighbor passed away in a car crash. Finally, a second friend offered to take the piece, and not so long after, attempted to take their own life. And yet in October of 2022, Pogo the Clown was sold for $12,800 to an undisclosed buyer. Why would you do this to yourself? At number 7, we have the Crying Boy. From first glance, this looks like a fairly normal painting. Maybe something hung up in the back of your great aunt's house, or something like that. But it's much more than just your basic painting. It's been the center of a series of strange coincidences that are just too odd to be true. Originally painted by Giovanni Bergoli, it was mass-produced as a print across the 1950s, so everyone could enjoy hanging this sad, crying boy in the comfort of their own home. Yeah, that was until they would burn down. Because for some weird, otherworldly reason, firefighters around Essex, London would report that frequently, amidst smoldering ruins of burned down houses, repeatedly they would find the crying boy, completely untouched by the flames, even when everything else had burned to ash. Now, once is bizarre, two is truly strange, but once this happens 3 times, yeah, you've got an outright paranormal mystery on your hands. So British newspaper The Sun printed out warnings of people who owned the painting that they should get rid of it or reap the consequences. The story was so popular and people were so invested in the cause of the crying boy that The Sun tried to take it upon themselves to rid London of the curse by holding a bonfire in which anyone who owned a print could come, torch it, and hopefully exorcise whatever demons got into the printing press. The bonfire was a huge success, with tons of the prints being torched, seemingly ending the curse of the crying boy. And after all this, The print is kind of growing on me. Number 6, we have Man Proposes, God Exposes. Have polar bears not been through enough? Their home is melting as we speak, and now they're part of a cursed painting. Man Proposes, God Exposes was created by Edwin Landseer and depicts 2 polar bears surrounding the wreckage of Sir John Franklin's doomed Arctic expedition in 1845. So while the title of the painting suggests that humans can make plans and propose ideas, ultimately fate or a higher power, represented by God or nature, decides the outcome. While there's no definitive proof that the painting itself is associated with any supernatural or malevolent powers, there are urban legends and myths surrounding it, particularly among students at Royal Holloway University of London. One of the most widely circulated legends is that students who sat in front of the painting during an exam would fail it, which, to be fair, sounds like something I would say to a professor. But another urban legend takes it a step further, involving a student who allegedly took their own life after an exam, leaving a message that read, "The polar bears made me do it," on their exam paper. During exam season now, the painting is covered with a Union Jack in order to help students pass. But its history leaves a lot of questions, and not fun ones. And number 5, we have Minovia. Juan and Antonio Luna are beloved brothers of the Filipino people, as one became a world-famous class artist, and the other fought as a revolutionary leader during the Filipino-American War. Juan, who was the painter among the siblings, was apparently so much in love with his wife, Maria de la Paz Pardo de Tavera, or simply Paz, that he created a painting of her after he was accepted as a painter at the Salon de Paris, which, if you didn't know, was a prestigious annual exhibition in the Western world at the time. So he created 2 paintings, Odalisque and Minovia, also known as the Portrait of a Lady. But the introduction of a man named Monsieur Dussac brought a ton of jealousy onto Juan, leading to a domestic dispute where Paz escaped and resided in a home where Dussac happened to be. Upon learning this, Juan ended the life of Paz, as well as his mother-in-law, in that very home. Because of this, the painting was rumored to be cursed, and those who obtained it fell to the curse and the misfortune it carried. Some even say Paz's restless ghost lingers in the painting. The irony, however, is that Paz and the woman in the painting don't look alike at all, as the woman in the painting carried more Caucasian features, whereas Paz had darker skin and was 100% Filipina. Turns out the woman might be another model Luna had met, a French woman named Angel Duché. Regardless, let this be a lesson, talk out your problems. Number 4, we have the works of Arshile Gorky. Arshile Gorky had a special talent. That talent? Churning out cursed paintings. His works of arts, created between 1904 and 1938, are long since rumored to be cursed, with paintings reportedly falling from walls, catching on fire, and owners being visited by a black-haired ghost in a blue overcoat. In one case, on March 1st, 1962, a plane with 87 passengers, 8 crew members, and 15 abstract paintings by Gorky crashed into a swamp 2 minutes after takeoff, resulting on everyone on board losing their life and destroying the paintings. So who was Arshile Gorky? Well, he was an Armenian painter who, starting in 1946, suffered a series of tragic events. His studio burned down, he underwent a colostomy for cancer, leaving him traumatized and also handicapped, and his wife had an affair with his closest friend, artist Roberto Matta. Then he broke his neck and his painting arm in a car accident the same week his wife left him, and she took their children with her. Now left partially paralyzed and alone, surrounded by dozens of paintings he had or could now no longer finish, Gorky took his own life in the art studio when he was 44. Of all his works, The Artist and the Mother is said to be his most haunting piece. The atmosphere around it is deeply depressing and nauseating, reportedly leaving viewers and owners in dangerous mindsets. And of all the paintings, this one's backstory might truly be the spookiest. And number 3, we have The Hands Resist 'Em. Created by Bill Stoneham and depicting a nightmarish scene that I know I'll see in my dreams tonight, this more recent addition to this list is just as evil as the rest. Here's how the story goes. In 2000, a couple in California came across this painting in an abandoned brewery and decided to take it home with them, not knowing what might unfold in the aftermath. And then, weird things started happening. The story goes that the couple's daughter would complain about the boy and the doll in the painting fighting each other at night, and this was rebuked by the mother, who also said that she had looked at the painting one night only to see the boy missing, only to return to normal the next morning. After realizing they had dealt with enough tomfoolery, they listed the piece on eBay with the warning, "This painting may or may not possess supernatural powers that could impact or change your life." At this point, the piece started gaining a lot of attention online. There were stories of people becoming incredibly unsettled or even physically ill from just looking at the painting in the eBay listing. Finally though, the piece was purchased by gallery owner Kim Smith for $1,025. $1,000 to get cursed? Yeah, find a new hobby, people. At number 2, we have the Stagecraft. So Laura P's The Stagecraft is an interesting one because it's actually an interpretation of a real-life photograph taken by the photographer James Kidd. And here's the spooky. See, Kidd hadn't noticed at first, but once this picture was developed, there was what looked to be a headless man standing on a log beside the old wagon. James even took his picture to experts and have them confirm that the picture hadn't been altered in any way. And apparently, at least according to everyone he spoke to, it hadn't. Artist Laura P created oil paintings based on photographs and felt compelled to recreate Kidd's stagecoach photo. She described feeling a deep sense of dread almost as soon as she started the piece, and once it was finished, she hung it at a local office where bizarre occurrences began happening. Firstly, the painting would be crooked every morning and would have to be readjusted, but then things would go missing, so Laura decided to move it into her own home. Bad idea. Laura began hearing strange noises in her home, like knocks and footsteps, objects would be knocked over, and doors would be found seemingly open on their own. Even some of Laura's friends would report strange occurrences after visiting her home. I mean, her neighbor snapped photos of the painting, and when he returned home, he claimed to have seen a white hazy figure out of the corner of his eye. He came running back to Laura's house saying he never wanted to touch the pictures ever again. But why would you touch it in the first place? And number 1, we have Untitled. I don't know what's scarier, trying to pronounce this guy's name or the actual painting. So to round things off, we have Zdzisław Beksiński's Untitled painting that looks like a scene straight out of a nightmare. And it's a perfect combination because not only does it look terrifying, but the legend surrounding the painting is also horrifying. If you didn't already know by his name, Beksiński was a Polish painter who did not title any of his paintings because he wanted to avoid any metaphorical interpretation of his art. As an artist, Beksiński was fascinated with death, decay, and darkness. So when you take a look at his work, you'll unsurprisingly see death, decaying, and gruesome images. But the emotions he portrayed in his work followed him in real life. His life was filled with tragedy after his wife suddenly passed, and just a year later his son would follow. 6 years after these horrible accidents, he himself was found in his apartment. Understandably, his tragic last years have since often been linked with the grimness of his art. And man, I really should have warned you ahead of time of this work. Yeah, that's my bad. That's our list of 10 evil pieces of art. Make sure to like this vid, and in the comments let us know which of these is the most cursed, and if you believe any of these crazy tales. Now for Bumblebee, I'm Ethan. Thanks again for watching. Like I said, give this video a like, and I'll see you in the next one.